the Salem Baptist Church. It is distinguished as above from the town of Salem where the meeting house stands, in a township and county of the same name, from Philadelphia, a distance of 36 miles. He lists the history. I've been so happy as to find the history of this church made ready to my hand. This happiness I owe to Sheppard, who was the first minister. He begins in the following manner. Besides those, the families of Killingsworth and Holmes. And now we have the mention of the name Holmes in association with New Jersey history. And throughout the day, you will see that name, hear that name over and over again, because it was a prominent name here. Obadiah Holmes' descendants did help settle New Jersey, as well as start Baptist churches in this area, in fact, all over New Jersey. But he says the meetings were kept partly at the house of Mr. Killingsworth and partly at the house of Mr. Holmes by Alloway's Creek. And he says after Mr. Killingworth's death in 1708, meetings were discontinued for a considerable time, and the few Baptists that remained here and at Penn's Neck and Gloucester joined Cohansey. Near the end of Mr. Brooks' days, who was the pastor of Cohansey, a meeting was set up at the house of Mr. Samuel Fogg by Quentin's Bridge. But after the death of Mr. Brooks in 1716, it was discontinued for near 20 years. But about the year 1741, Mr. Nathaniel Jenkins, and you need to remember that name, that is a prominent name in Baptist history, Nathaniel Jenkins renewed the meetings and began to preach. Now, to give you an idea of what's taking place, this church is a daughter church of the Cohansey Baptist Church. You'll see that church later today. The Cohansey Baptist Church had several daughter churches, and those churches also planted churches. You perhaps noticed the document down in the room that showed pictures of the churches that were formed out of this church. And there again, you see the church planting fervor of the early Baptists. We noticed that Mr. Jenkins would travel to several outstations of the Cohansey Church and preach. We were talking about that last evening, that some of these Baptist preachers, in fact a good number of them, did not just preach in their home church. They would travel and preach at what they called outstations, what they would call missions. They would organize other churches and would maintain the care of those churches as pastor until someone else would be trained or fitted or move into the area who could assume the pastorate of that church. Often, these men would pastor 3, 4, 5, 6 churches at one time. They were workhorses. That's what they were. They not only were making a living for themselves, usually by farming, but they were also pastoring churches, planting churches, and overseeing the work of the Lord among those people. And we have lost ground in recent days, recent years, because we have limited ourselves to one area, to one church, and we have not been willing, when opportunity was available, to branch out and start other churches. But he says that a meeting was regularly kept in the house of Abner Sims, partly by Nathaniel Jenkins, Robert Kelsay, and myself, but by reason of Mr. Jenkins' age and Mr. Kelsay's going to Pittsgrove, the care of the people fell chiefly on me, which induced me, and this is Mr. Sheppard, induced me to come and settle among them. All this while we were members of Cohansey. The increase of members and hearers induced us to build a meeting house, which was done in 1743. 12 years after, we petitioned Cohansey for leave to separate, which was granted, and May 17, 1755, we were constituted a distinct church, and in 1757 we were received into the association.